Hello, my name is Jim DeMail, and this is A Course in Miracles. Today is Lesson 10. My thoughts do not mean anything. This idea applies to all the thoughts of which you are aware, or become aware in the practice periods. The reason the idea is applicable to all of them is that they are not your real thoughts. We have made this distinction before, and I will do so again. You have no basis for comparison as yet. When you do, you will have no doubt that what you once believed were your thoughts did not mean anything. This is the second time we have used this kind of idea. The form is only slightly different. This time the idea is introduced with my thoughts instead of these thoughts, and no link is made overtly with the things around you. The emphasis is now on the lack of reality of what you think you think. Excuse me. This aspect of the correction process began with the idea that the thoughts of which you are aware are meaningless, outside rather than within, and then stress their past rather than their present status. Now we're emphasizing that the presence of these thoughts means that you are not thinking. This is merely another way of repeating our earlier statements that your mind is really a blank. To recognize this is to recognize nothingness. When you think, you see it. As such, it is the prerequisite for vision. Close your eyes for these exercises and introduce them by repeating the idea for today, quite slowly to yourself. Then add, this idea will help to release me from all that I think I now believe. The exercises consist, as before, in searching your mind for all the thoughts that are available to you, without selection or judgment. Try to avoid classification of any kind. In fact, if you find it helpful to do so, you might imagine that you are watching an oddly assorted procession going by, which has little, if any, personal meaning to you. As each one crosses your mind, say, my thought about, fill in the blank, does not mean anything. My thought about, fill in the blank, does not mean anything. Today's thought can obviously serve for any thought that distresses you at any time. In addition, 5 practice periods are recommended, each involving no more than a minute or so of mind searching. It is not recommended that this time period be extended, and it should be reduced to half a minute or less if you experience discomfort. Remember, however, to repeat the idea slowly before applying it specifically, and also to add, this idea will help to release me from all that I now believe. When I was a very young man, there was a movie that was on the big screen called The Longest Day. It was a pretty popular movie. It's endured. It's still being replayed on those TV channels that play old movies. Anyway, in that movie, we were watching both the Allied preparation and the Axis power preparation for the invasion of France, V-Day. What was curious in that movie, and just almost as an afterthought, difficulties were being experienced on both sides in their preparation. The Eisenhower Allied command exclaimed, I wonder whose side God is on anyway. The German High Command later on, exclaimed, "I wonder whose side God is on anyway." Yeah, we can say that God doesn't take sides, and we'd be really on the right track. But it's an example of what we think we know, of what we think we believe. This is where conflict comes in. All he's doing in this exercise is clearing away your fearful mind. It's the mind that's always preparing for the event that might be happening next. It's the mind that may be seeking gratification to somehow avoid the boredom or any other pain that it's experiencing. But in order to become more comfortable with the voice for God within us, we have to begin to let go of all that thinking. This morning, my wife said to me, as I was looking at my placemat at the table and thinking about whether Orlando Magic were going to make a trade or not. This is how I think when I'm falling asleep sometimes. And so she exclaims, "Get out of your head." So I looked up at her and smiled and realized maybe it would be a good idea to tune back into the present moment with her. No argument came from me. But I did notice it took a little bit of effort to get back into the present moment. Of course, she was tempted to take this all very personally. I didn't argue with her because, of course, that was absurd. And she quickly self-corrected. And she let me have my problem of all these thoughts that I was having. These are not thoughts. This is merely rambling and wandering and, frankly, still reacting. Not at all focused into the present, and therefore not at all thinking. Don't we say to somebody that we're trying to help, "Wait a minute, let's think about this for a minute. Can we just think about this for a minute?" Unfortunately, we might say, "Listen to me for a moment." So instead of "listen to me for a moment," how about "let's think about this together"? Look, a couple 100 years ago we could say, "Let's pray about this together." That's kind of a problem today. Nor is it necessary to use those words, pray. But it is necessary to get back to thinking. Look what would happen if we thought together. It really wouldn't matter who's president, would it? And it really wouldn't matter who's with who. It really wouldn't matter whether you were alone or with someone else if we were thinking together. That's my goal this year. Let's think together. We'll talk again.